One of the great things about living in New England in the fall are all the apple orchards that are around. And this year I went apple picking with my daughter and my grandkids and ended up with a lot of apples. So today I'm going to make an apple pie, which is a request from my daughter Holly down in North Carolina. Hi, I'm Karen, and this is Grandma's New England Kitchen. Hello everyone. I just wanted to hop on real quick because this apple pie recipe did have some filming issues. So before you actually get into it, I just want to explain what had to be completely taken out. You will see pretty much the entire apple pie being made, but I don't know what button I hit on my camera. Everything went into slow mode while I was doing the grains. I was trying to show you an alternate that you can do for milling, grinding your grains. And I've been doing it for quite a few years, 9-10 years now. And how I started was basically with a Vitamix. And this is the grain craft. I don't know if you can see that, but it does have the little grain symbol on it. And it's an impact grinder. And I did mill the spelt and the soft white wheat in this. And that's what's missing. And then I did go ahead and sift them like you've seen me do in some of the other videos. I was just trying to show a way that if you didn't have a mock mill and you weren't sure if you wanted to invest in one yet, and if you do have the Vitamix and you do have this attachment for it, it works fantastic. I hope not having a stone mill miller doesn't stop you, because the flavor is so much better when it's freshly milled flour. Sorry that got all messed up, but I don't think you'd want to watch an hour of slow-mo of me milling or grinding grains. So I'll get you right back to the video now. Okay, so I have my 360 grams of flour. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut in the butter. This has been in the freezer. And I'm making a double pie crust. So this is 1 cup of frozen cubed butter. And I just noticed, I'm hoping that some of the filming didn't end up messed up. I think I may have hit a button on the camera. But we'll find out down the road. So, just in case, this is 180 grams of spelt flour that I ground or milled in the Vitamix, and then another 180 grams of soft wheat. Now I'm putting in 1 full cup of frozen butter. I will put the top on and just pulse this a couple times to process this in. Okay, so that was 8 pulses, and I realized I completely forgot to put in my cornstarch. So this is 4 tablespoons cornstarch, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 2 teaspoons of an organic sugar. So let me pulse. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I have some freezing cold water that I have in the freezer, and just pulse this water in until the dough just starts to come together. Okay, let me take a look at it. I'm in a mess. That's very like me. I make messes. Okay, yep. So what you're looking for is if you can bring the dough up and squish it and it sticks together. That's what we want. So now what I'm going to do is weigh the dough and split it into, what I find is the best way to do this is to weigh the dough so you get it nice and even. Take the blade out. And the best thing to do is just flop it down. Yes, I made a mess. Fortunately, most of it is up in here. It's all salvageable. Oh boy. That was funny. I should have just done it on a flat surface, then put it on here. Duh. Not very bright there. Okay, so let's see. I have 744 grams. So let's split this in half now. So we want 744, 372 grams. I hope I got that right. You want to try not to mess with the dough too much. So let me get a pastry. And try to somewhat figure this out. There's 372 there. Here's one to know if I was figuring things out right. 374, so good enough for government work. Okay, now what you want to do is try to form it into a disc. Just squish it all together. And I use the plastic to help me do that. I'll go ahead and twist it. There's one. And here's number two. So what we're going to end up with, I don't know how well you can see that, but there's lots of butter down in here. It is a whole grain dough. And I'm going to go and let this rest in the refrigerator now for a couple of hours. Then I will come back and I'm going to make the filling, which the apple pie filling. And I'll get my husband in here to help me with that. And that has to cool, and then we'll put the pie together. So for now, these are going to go into the refrigerator. I'm going to clean up some here and get set up to make the pie filling. So see you in just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to start on the filling. For the majority, I've already peeled and sliced up the apples, but I left one to do so you can see what I do. So I usually just peel off the top and then peel down. And the reason I don't use an apple pillar core thing is it slices the apples, I think, too thin for apple pie. I like a little bit of bite in my apples. So then just quarter them and go down an angle and take the core out. And then slice them. I'm using a combination of Cortland apples, and this is what's called a snow apple. Now, all the ones that I peeled earlier are sitting over here. I did put them in water with lemon, but for some reason, they still turned brown on me. But it doesn't matter because we're going to be adding cinnamon and everything to this. So let's go ahead and get this started. It's 2 tablespoons of butter. Go down. Oh, nope, won't put the apples in yet, sorry. So it's a 1/2 cup of regular sugar, a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, it is 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then this is one of my little secret ingredients. So what's sitting over here is this very concentrated spiced cider. So I put in 2 ounces of this into it. Stir this around, and then the next thing you add are the apples. And I probably needed a bigger pot, but they will cook down. So we'll go ahead and cook these down, and as soon as they get to where they need to be, I'll bring you back and you can see what they look like. Okay, these are cooking down nicely. And what I want you to see is you never know with your apples. Sometimes there's a whole lot, they release a lot of liquid, which these have, and sometimes they don't. And you're never going to get this thick before, otherwise your apples are going to turn to mush. So if that happens, feel free to add a tablespoon of cornstarch to 2 tablespoons of water and pour that down in there to start thickening this up. And we'll let that go. I did forget when I was putting in all the spices, the nutmeg. I like to use fresh grated nut. It's about 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And then we'll let this cook for a little bit, and I'll bring you back in just a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, the sauce has actually started to thicken up. And the last thing we're going to do to this part before we turn it off is put in 1/4 cup of cream. You can use heavy cream. What I'm using is the Chobani vanilla flavored coffee cream. One, it just adds that little bit hint of vanilla, and it's just an awesome taste. So now we're going to cut this off, and this has to cool completely before we move on to assembling the pie and baking it. Okay, so it's time to go ahead and roll out the dough, and we'll see how this goes. This is a new dough for me. Probably should have tested it prior, but now this gets to be the test. It's cracking quite a bit. Let's see. When it's cracking, just go ahead and try to fix those spots. Try to make it as round as you can. This dough is soft. Let's see if I can get this turned over. Yeah, this dough is cracking quite a bit. But just patch it up the best you can. Let me see where I'm at. Oh yeah, I'm definitely to the size I need. Okay, so the big thing is you don't want to stretch the dough. And this is where, even though you had some cracks, you can still go along, and the dough does look fine here. Just set it down in. And I don't have any cracks on the inside. There are some right here along the outside, but that's okay. Roll this around. It's a very buttery crust. Almost feels like a shortbread dough. Just tuck under. What I'm doing is I'm taking the extra and tucking it under, which is going to give a little bit of a deeper lip here. So when we put the top on, then we'll just put it all together. Okay, so the crust is in. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the apples. And one of the reasons that I cook them is if you've ever made apple pie with raw apples, then all of a sudden your crust is sitting like up here and your apples are way down here. It's because they do release liquids, they shrink down. When you cook them first, wherever you fill them up to is basically where they're going to stay. Oops, I'm getting messy. Just try to mound them up the best that you can. Me personally, I think, and I think you do too, that more apples, the better.
Would you add some of that sauce in the bottom of the pan to it?
Yes, I will pour some of it on before I roll out the top. Okay, so we got all the apples in here and everything. I did mound it up pretty high. Hopefully I don't run into any problems here. So now we're going to go ahead and roll out the other dough. Let me clean up my mess some so it doesn't stick. Okay, liberally flour the surface. And let's go for the second one. Put some flour on the top. And here we get to go to rolling out the top layer. Again, may end up with some cracking issues. Actually, this one doesn't seem to be cracking as much. No, I spoke too soon. One thing that I didn't say why I used spelt flour. Spelt has a nutty sweetness to it. So that's why I went with spelt for the heirloom grain. This happens to you, just try to patch it up some. I think we should be right about. Same thing as before. Just roll it on the rolling pin. Just roll it across the top. And we'll bring it back to here and just tuck everything down. Stick it to the dough that was down at the bottom. And then once I'm done doing this part, we'll come back and we'll flute it, or do the really, not perfect at that, but we'll try to make the crust look a little bit nicer. So I'm not the greatest at doing this part, but especially with this crust. But what you want to do is use 2 fingers and your knuckle and go through and just kind of press up against it to get those fluted edges. And the dough over here is not as thick as the other part, but this is what we call rustic. Homemade. Okay, so I'm going to go and get an egg wash and a knife to cut the slits in here. And so we'll egg wash this, get some rock sugar on top of it, and then get it in the oven. Make sure you're preheating your oven to 375 degrees. And it's going to go in the oven for about 50 minutes. When I come back after I put the egg wash on here and the sugar, I'm going to wrap the edge so it doesn't burn. I'll show you that once we come back. Okay, so what we'll do now, I have some heavy cream and an egg. And just beat this up really well. And just brush the entire top. And this is what's going to give you a nice golden shiny top. Try not to get too thick with the egg, otherwise, especially in these little dimples, because then you'll actually see like egg. It won't be shiny. And then once I'm done with this, I'll do some vent holes and sprinkle it with some coarse confection sugar. And I'll show you one other thing that I do. So, okay, let me go ahead and put the slits in. And this is so the steam can come out. Okay, and then sprinkle it with this coarser confection sugar. Makes for a nice, sweet, crunchy top. And then before it goes into the oven, I wrap the edge with this. And about halfway, after about the first 20 minutes or so of cooking, I will remove this. But that way, it saves your crust edge from burning. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this to the oven, and I'll see you when it comes out. So the pie is out of the oven. It is still a little too hot, so we are probably not going to cut into this tonight. So just to make it clear, if you cannot grind or mill your own grains, then use a cake flour. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
I'm gonna enjoy it as soon as we cut into it.
So here's the pie cut. The layers are nice. The crust is right there. The only thing is it is a little juicy at the bottom. So there was a lot of liquid in those apples. So that usually just depends on what type of apples you use. Other than that, tastes fantastic, and I hope everyone enjoys this pie.